Please marry me, billionaire single man begs a homeless girl, but what he asked in return shocked. Before we dive into today's emotional story, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications bell, because you don't want to miss the powerful life lessons hidden in these stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Now, imagine a billionaire so lonely that he kneels before a homeless girl with just 3 desperate words, "Please marry me." What he asked in return left her in shock. The winter air in New York bit through her torn coat as she huddled beneath the flickering glow of a diner sign, clutching an empty coffee cup for warmth. Across the street, a limousine slowed to a halt, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out, his eyes scanning the world as though it offered him everything, yet nothing at all. Their gazes collided for a breathless second, and though they belonged to different worlds, fate had already decided to weave their stories together. The city of New York had a way of amplifying contrasts. For some, it was the land of endless opportunities, shimmering skylines, and doors that opened with a flick of a black card. For others, it was an unforgiving machine, chewing dreams into scraps and spitting them out onto cold sidewalks. Amara Bennett belonged to the second group. Once a bright, ambitious young woman who dreamed of becoming a nurse, she now found herself sleeping on benches, depending on shelters, and praying that each sunrise would bring a sliver of hope. Her skin, warm and deep like polished mahogany, held the memory of better days, but hardship had carved itself into her spirit. Still, her eyes, dark, luminous, stubbornly alive, betrayed a spark she could never fully bury. On that particular night, she pressed her knees to her chest, sitting near a diner she couldn't afford to eat at. The glass window displayed couples laughing over steaming plates, families sharing fries, and college kids clinking soda glasses. Amara watched with a bittersweet ache, her stomach gnawing from hunger, her soul yearning not just for food, but for connection. Across the city, in a penthouse high above the glittering skyline, Nicholas Harrington was finishing another dinner alone. His apartment stretched like a modern museum, floor-to-ceiling windows, art worth millions, and silence so heavy it pressed on his chest. At 36, Nicholas was one of the most eligible billionaires in America. He owned Harrington Global, a conglomerate that touched everything from tech to real estate. But all his achievements meant nothing when he came home to emptiness. People thought Nicholas was untouchable, desired by women, envied by men. Yet in truth, he carried scars that no amount of money could erase. His parents' bitter divorce, a failed engagement with a woman who only loved his fortune, and years of keeping people at arm's length had hardened him. He longed for something real, something pure. Love that wasn't bought, bargained, or conditional. That night, tired of suffocating luxury, Nicholas left his chauffeur at home and asked to be dropped off near the diner district. He needed air, something ordinary, something real. He pulled his coat tighter as he stepped onto the street, his polished shoes clashing against the grit of the sidewalk. And that's when he saw her. Amara's head was bowed, her curly hair frizzed against the wind, her fingers wrapped around an empty cup. Her coat was worn thin, its buttons missing. She wasn't asking for change though, she simply sat there, as though the world had given her no choice but to exist unseen. Their eyes met. Nicholas froze. There was something arresting about her gaze, fierce, proud, unbroken despite her circumstances. He felt an unfamiliar jolt in his chest. Most people looked at him with expectation, calculation. She looked at him like he was just another man walking by. Amara blinked, embarrassed to have been caught staring. She turned her head, but Nicholas found himself crossing the street toward her. "Cold night," he said, his voice low, uncertain. She looked up slowly, measuring him. His tailored suit and fine features screamed wealth, but his tone carried no arrogance, just human. "Colder for some of us," Amara replied softly, pulling her coat tighter. Nicholas hesitated, then gestured toward the diner. "May I buy you something warm?" For a moment, suspicion flickered in her eyes. Men had offered her things before, but always with strings attached. But his expression was earnest, almost gentle. Hunger gnawed at her resolve. Finally, she nodded. Inside the diner, the warmth hit her like a wave. She sat stiffly at the booth, conscious of the other diners staring. Nicholas slid into the seat across from her. "Order anything you'd like," he said. Amara hesitated, then settled on a simple bowl of soup and toast. When the food arrived, she whispered a quiet thanks before diving in, each bite tasting like salvation. Nicholas watched, not with pity, but with a strange admiration. "What's your name?" he asked. Amara. I'm Nicholas. She looked up, arching a brow. Nicholas Harrington? As in Harrington Global. His lips curved in a faint, humorless smile. You know me. Everyone knows you, she said. The billionaire who could buy an island just to have lunch in peace. Nicholas chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. And yet, here I am, buying soup in a diner. Amara studied him, unsure what to make of this man. Why was he here, talking to her, instead of surrounded by glamorous models or business tycoons? For Nicholas, the question echoing in his own mind was far simpler. Why does it feel like I've been searching for her all along? If you were Amara, sitting across from a billionaire in a warm diner after weeks of cold nights, would you trust his intentions, or guard your heart? Thought balloons, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you'd do. The diner clock ticked steadily as Amara sipped the last of her soup, her fingers trembling slightly from the warmth that finally seeped into her body. She had never expected the night to turn out like this. A stranger, a billionaire of all people, sitting across from her with the quiet intensity of someone searching for something more than conversation. Nicholas stirred his untouched coffee, his gaze fixed on the steam curling upward. He was silent long enough for Amara to shift uneasily in her seat. Despite herself, Amara began to soften. She found herself looking forward to his visits, to the way his presence made her feel human again. But the outside world was not as forgiving. When tabloids caught sight of Nicholas entering the shelter, headlines exploded. Billionaire Harrington seen with mystery woman from streets. Nicholas Harrington's latest scandal? The whispers spread quickly. At his office, board members muttered about optics. At the shelter, some women cast jealous or skeptical glances at Amara. One evening, as Amara sat reading the book Nicholas had given her, two women approached. So that's your sugar daddy, huh? One sneered. Amara's jaw tightened. He's not. Please. Guys like him don't hang around girls like us unless they want something. The words cut deep because they echoed her own fears. Was Nicholas truly different? Or was she a fool waiting to be used? That night, when Nicholas arrived, Amara confronted him. Why me? She demanded, her voice trembling. Out of all the women in your world, rich, beautiful, polished, you pick me? What's the catch? Nicholas's eyes softened, but his answer came without hesitation. Because they don't see me. They see my money, my name, my empire. You saw a man on a street corner and didn't ask for anything. Do you know how rare that is? Amara swallowed hard, but her doubts clung like shadows. And what if I can't be what you want me to be? Nicholas reached for her hand this time, gently brushing his thumb across her knuckles. Then at least I'll know I tried with someone real. Someone worth the risk. Her breath caught. His sincerity disarmed her, yet fear still gnawed at her heart. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? If you were Amara, would you let Nicholas keep proving himself, even with the world doubting you, or would you walk away to protect your heart? Thought balloons, share in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Amara hasn't said yes yet, but she's no longer dismissing Nicholas outright. The emotional tension is rising, the world is pushing against them, and the possibility of love feels both terrifying and irresistible. Backhand index pointing right, the tension reached its peak the following week. Nicholas had been consistent, every day, every gesture, every word an attempt to prove his sincerity. Amara, though cautious, had begun to trust him, at least enough to let herself laugh again, enough to feel that fragile flicker of hope she had buried for years. But the world noticed. And the world was merciless. The morning papers screamed in bold letters. Billionaire Harrington to marry homeless woman? Investors panic. Amara saw the headline as she walked past a newsstand, her stomach dropping. She froze, staring at her own grainy photo splashed across the page. People on the street whispered, some pointing, some sneering. When she arrived at the shelter, she overheard two volunteers whispering. She's using him. You'll see. They always do. She's lucky he hasn't come to his senses yet. Amara's hands shook as she slipped into her bunk, clutching the thin blanket to her chest. She wanted to believe Nicholas's words, but reality screamed otherwise. She didn't belong in his world. She never would. Later that evening, Nicholas invited her to a charity gala, a decision Amara resisted with everything in her. I don't own a gown. I don't belong in rooms like that, she argued. You belong wherever you choose to stand, Nicholas countered. And I want you beside me. Reluctantly, she allowed him to take her shopping. For the first time in years, she stood before a mirror in a boutique, clothed in a flowing midnight blue gown that hugged her figure and brought out the glow in her skin. Amara barely recognized herself. You look breathtaking, Nicholas murmured, his voice rough with awe. Amara's cheeks heated, but insecurity gnawed at her. What if they laugh? What if they tear me apart? Then let them, Nicholas said firmly. Because I'll be standing right there, holding your hand. The gala was everything Amara feared: glittering chandeliers, crystal glasses, and people who looked at her as though she had wandered in from the wrong side of town. Conversations hushed when she entered at Nicholas's side, her arm trembling against his. Smile, Nicholas whispered, squeezing her hand. Ignore them. But ignoring proved impossible. A group of investors cornered Nicholas, their voices sharp. This is reckless, Nicholas, one man snapped. Your reputation, your business, tied to a woman like that? Amara's stomach twisted. She's not a headline, Nicholas shot back coldly. She's a human being, and she's with me. The investor sneered. For now. Amara's eyes burned with humiliation. She excused herself, fleeing to the balcony for air. The city glittered below, but all she could feel was the sting of being exposed, dissected, judged. The gown felt like a costume, the stairs like knives. Nicholas found her minutes later, his expression etched with concern. Amara. She spun on him, tears glistening. This is exactly what I was afraid of. They'll never see me as anything but the homeless girl who got lucky. And you, your whole empire could crumble because of me. Nicholas stepped closer, his voice low, urgent. Let it crumble. Without love, all of it is worthless. Amara shook her head, trembling. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more, Nicholas said fiercely. I've spent my life building walls of glass and steel, filling them with things that don't matter. And then I met you. You matter, Amara. You are the only thing that matters. Her heart pounded, torn between terror and yearning. But what if I can't give you what you want? What if I fail you? Nicholas reached for her hands, pressing them to his chest. Then fail with me. But don't walk away. Don't let fear steal what we've been given. For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the city's hum. Amara's tears spilled freely now, her walls crumbling under the weight of his words. You don't know how much I want to believe you, she whispered. Then believe me, Nicholas pleaded, his voice cracking. Please. Believe me. Inside, the gala buzzed on, oblivious. On the balcony, two broken souls stood on the edge of something terrifying and beautiful. And in that moment, raw, trembling but undeniable, Amara leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. Nicholas wrapped his arms around her, holding her as though she were the most precious thing he had ever known. The world would not make it easy. But for the first time, Amara thought, maybe it was worth the risk. The morning after the gala, Amara woke with a heaviness in her chest. The shelter's thin mattress was familiar, but the emotions tangled in her heart were not. Nicholas's words still echoed inside her, you are the only thing that matters. Yet the headlines were merciless. Harrington's madness. Billionaire risks fortune for street romance. Beauty or burden. The Mystery Woman by Nicholas's side. Amara folded the paper away, her stomach twisting. It wasn't just her heart on the line anymore, it was Nicholas's empire, his legacy. Could she really let him throw it all away for her? When Nicholas arrived later that day, she met him outside. You have to stop this, Amara said, her voice firm despite the ache inside. The world won't accept me in your life. They'll destroy you for it. Nicholas's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. Amara, listen. No, you listen, she cut in. I've seen people lose everything. I know what it's like. I won't be the reason you lose yours. Nicholas stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're not the reason I'd lose anything. You're the reason I finally have something worth fighting for. Her breath caught, but she shook her head, desperate to hold her ground. Why me, Nicholas? Why risk it all for someone who has nothing to give? Nicholas's voice softened, but his words carried steel. Because you are everything I've been searching for. Your love, your honesty, your strength. It's worth more than every dollar in my account. And if the world can't see that, then the world has no place in my life. Amara's walls cracked a little more, but the fear still lingered. She wanted to believe him, but her past still haunted her. That evening, Nicholas made a choice that shocked everyone. At a press conference, standing before flashing cameras and skeptical reporters, Nicholas Harrington faced the storm head-on. "I've been asked to explain my relationship with Amara Bennett," he began, his voice steady. "So let me be perfectly clear. She is not a scandal. She is not a headline. She is not someone I pity. She is the woman I love. And if that means losing investors, losing so-called friends, losing everything I've built, then so be it. Because without her, none of it matters." Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters shouted questions. Some investors stormed out in fury. But Nicholas stood tall, unflinching. Watching the live broadcast from the shelter, Amara pressed a trembling hand to her lips. Tears streamed down her cheeks. He hadn't just said he cared, he had put everything on the line to prove it. Later that night, Nicholas appeared at the shelter once more, his suit discarded for a simple sweater and jeans. He found Amara sitting in the common room, her eyes red from crying. "You saw it," he said quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. "I wasn't asking for your love at the gala," Nicholas continued, stepping closer. "I was begging for it. But now I don't want you to say yes out of pity, or fear, or even gratitude. I want you to say yes because your heart tells you to." Amara's voice broke. "You've given up everything." "No," Nicholas interrupted softly, taking her hands. "I've finally found everything." Her tears fell freely now, but this time, they weren't from fear. They were from relief, from the overwhelming realization that love, real love, was standing right in front of her. With a shaky laugh, she whispered, "Yes." Nicholas blinked, stunned. "Yes." "Yes," Amara repeated, stronger this time, her voice full of trembling joy. "I'll marry you." The shelter erupted with cheers as news spread. Staff and residents gathered, clapping and hugging Amara, some in disbelief, others in joy. For once, she wasn't invisible. She was seen, celebrated, loved. Nicholas slipped a simple ring onto her finger, not flashy, not extravagant, just a small, beautiful diamond. "This isn't about wealth," he murmured. "This is about us." Amara laughed through her tears, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Months later, the wedding took place, not in some glittering ballroom, but in a quiet garden surrounded by close friends, shelter residents, and a few allies who truly supported them. Amara walked down the aisle in a gown that shimmered like hope itself, her curls framing her radiant face. Nicholas stood waiting, his eyes filled with tears, his smile breaking through the stoic mask he had worn for years. When they said their vows, Amara's voice rang clear. "I thought I had nothing left. I thought love wasn't meant for me. But you showed me that love is not about what we have, it's about who we choose. And I choose you. Always." Nicholas's vow trembled with emotion. "I had everything the world could give, and yet I was empty. You filled the silence, Amara. You gave me back my heart. And today, I give it to you forever." They kissed beneath the soft spring sunlight, the world's noise falling away. After the ceremony, Nicholas and Amara returned to the shelter, not to live, but to give. They launched a foundation together, using Nicholas's resources and Amara's heart to build housing programs for the homeless, ensuring others could find hope as she once did. Their love became more than a story. It became a legacy. If you were Amara, would you have trusted Nicholas's love enough to say yes, even when the world doubted you? Ring thought balloon comment below. I'd love to hear if you believe love can truly conquer fear and circumstance. Nicholas and Amara's story began with an outrageous plea, "Please marry me," but it ended not in shock, not in scandal, but in redemption, belonging, and love that proved stronger than money, fear, or judgment. Because love, when it's real, always wins. Sparkling Heart.